I'm Lisa Stone. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Parenting Aces. Thanks for tuning in to the Parenting Aces podcast. I'm your host, Lisa Stone, and we are going to be talking about a new company called Sports Made Easy. And we're going to be speaking with two of the principals of the company, the president and CEO, Neil Parthasarathi, and the chief technology officer, Chuck Picarillo. This company initially was called My Game Solutions, and Trent Bride, who you guys have heard on the podcast before, actually brought the company to my attention. Trent is on the advisory board for the company, and My Game Solutions recently decided to rebrand to Sports Made Easy to better represent their mission and their vision. So the goal of the company is to connect players of all sports and skill levels to be able to enjoy their favorite sport in a quick, easy, and cost-effective way. And there's some great features on the app which you can play around with. But one of the cool things that these guys are offering for Parenting Aces is that you can get a 30-day free trial and then a 20% discount off the subscription through the end of 2018. So that is a special offer for the Parenting Aces community, and I hope you'll take advantage of that. Also, they are going to be conducting a summer camp with a subsidized rate plan for high performance and beginners. And the high performance kids, which I'm assuming would be most of the Parenting Aces audience, will be training with Melanie Udan. And Melanie is from the Atlanta area. I've known her for a really long time. She is a great young woman, recently retired from the pro game, and she's going to be working with the kids at this great summer camp with Sports Made Easy. So you can check out all the events on their website, and you can register, download the app, and do all those things. So it will be very simple for you, and you can check the show notes for links to everything we talked about this week. Before we jump into the conversation with Neil and Chuck, though, I want to bring your attention to an article that I recently posted on parentingaces.com. As some of you may already know, a highly regarded junior tennis coach was arrested last week for improper contact with a minor. And I think that it's very important that we parents, because we are our children's first defense against harm, that we are armed with information on how to prevent and protect our kids from this type of behavior. So without going into detail here, please check parentingaces.com and read my piece on protecting our children against predatory coaches. On a happier note, the Easter Bowl just finished, and I want to congratulate all the winners there. I also want to point out that at the Miami Open, which also recently finished, we had American champions in both the men's and women's singles, the men's doubles, and one of the women's doubles players. So great news for American tennis. Things seem to be on the uptick, at least for now, and that's awesome to see. All right, that's enough. Now back to this week's podcast. So sit back and enjoy my conversation with Neil and Chuck of My Game Solutions, which is now known as Sports Made Easy. I am so happy to have Neil Parthasarathi and Chuck Picarillo with us from My Game Solutions. Gentlemen, thank you so much for doing the podcast with us.
Thank you, Lisa, for having us.
Yeah, it was great.
So before we get into the particulars of what My Game Solutions is, I wanted to just kind of ask you guys what possessed you to develop an app around tennis. I mean, I've read your bios. Neither of you really played the sport in a meaningful way growing up. Tennis hasn't been an integral part of your lifestyle to now. And so what made you realize that there was a gap in the market?
Sure. So this is Neil. We chose tennis for really two reasons. One, even though we didn't play a whole lot of tennis, we watch a lot of tennis, so it's a great sport and, a lot of camaraderie around the sport. So that's one of the reasons. And my son plays a junior level competitive tennis. So I spend almost every day and week, a couple hours on the court. So that kind of got me into this. When we were looking for a solution, in the sporting industry, we had to start off somewhere. Since we were very close to the tennis game, it made a lot of sense to start there. Plus, it's a very organized sport as compared to many other sports that we think. So maybe it's a great start for us to start with something which is a bit more organized to get our arms around.
Chuck, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, the other contributing factor, if, you look at both Neil and my professional background, it has always been heavily involved in people's health and well-being, and utilizing technology to accomplish that. I have 30 years of experience applying technology into the healthcare world, and Neil only adds to that. And this application not only does it obviously help people organize and coordinate playing tennis, but it also by doing that improves the quality of their lives, the happiness of their lives, and the health of their lives. And so here again, we're using technology to, help people's well-being and living a healthy lifestyle.
Right. And Neil, I have to say it's refreshing to have another tennis parent actually as part of the conversation here. So I may tap into that aspect of your involvement in My Game Solutions as well, if you don't mind.
Sure. If I get your question correctly, as a tennis parent, we live and breathe a lot of, tennis and day in, day out, and the problems the kids face, the challenges that, to get them on the court between the schools. And, so it's really a challenge. I used to travel a lot, for my previous job. And that's when my son used to complain that he doesn't get enough time on the court because I can't take him. I always travel, and it becomes a problem for somebody to drive him to the tennis court to play and stuff. And that's where this idea was born. Having something like this, which will make everybody's life easier to get another player, another venue set up very quickly. So when you're free, you can always find a match play, a game, to go hit with somebody.
Gotcha. So let's talk particulars about My Game Solutions. Can you guys give us just an overview of what the app does and how tennis families can use it?
Right. So the app functionality is pretty much like, what Uber does for taxi industry or Airbnb does for hospitality industry. It's about connecting the supply and demand. So the same concept is what we are applying here. We want to be able to find the demand for people like who are wanting to play, and then there are a lot of courts and venues and coaches available from a supply perspective and matching them together. So if I were to break it down in tennis language, you can find a fellow tennis player to go do a casual match play, or in the future we are also trying to connect the system with UTR, so you could also report your score and get credit for the UTR ranking. Otherwise you can just play a casual match, more of a practice match, which a lot of kids lack today. They're always busy, training and playing tournaments. So it's a healthy way for them to play a few matches outside of the tournament setting with less competitive nation play. So that would greatly improve their game. And secondly, if they're traveling, it's very hard for them to get a hitting partner just before the tournament. There we really help the players to either find a local coach or a hitting partner to hit just before they get on to the big tournaments, and whether the national tournament, wherever the travel takes them. So that's another integral part of our solution, helping them not only in the hometown, wherever they travel, we find them the coaches and hitting partners. And also we are planning on providing stringing services. So if you were to, go to California and you play a tournament, few rackets, you pop the string in few rackets and come back to the hotel, you don't know where we can get the racket strung, and we can help you there as well. You can just go online, find the local stringers, Of course, the US OSA certification is required for our stringers to get on the platform, so you're guaranteed that you're not giving a racket to some stringers who doesn't know how to string. So these are all the key elements. It's going to really help a junior player to build their game and then just grow with it.
Right. So if, let's say, for example, I go in the App Store and I download your app, and it is a free app?
Yes, it is. So we have 3 versions when it comes to the payment plan. One is the basic, which is free forever. You don't have to pay. The functionalities are limited. You can still find a player and you can invite them. You can book a venue. The venue booking always comes with a transaction fee. So, but the basic app allows you to find players and find stringers and find venues to book. And then the Premium Plus is where we have added features where you can invite more than one player at any given point of time. So you don't have to really wait for that one player to respond. So you can invite like 3 or 4 players at the same time, or accepts, then you go play with them. And the Premium Plus has some additional features on top of what we have, on the premium side.
And just for my knowledge, what is the cost of the Premium Plus?
So the Premium Plus is $6.99 a month, and the Premium is $3.99 a month.
Got it. So you just get a little bit more functionality with each of those paid options. And so once I download the app on my phone, what do I do next?
So once you download the app on the phone, you need to enhance your profile for 2 reasons. One, people, when they're looking for match play, they need to know what ranking, what level you are, what kind of player you are. So we encourage you to download and then put additional information on the profile, such as ranking, your location information so people can find you. Your location information can be changed whenever you travel to the local location as well, but you need to have your base location entered. And then if you're a parent, you could set up your credit card information for, if you were to make any purchase, so it makes the job a little bit easier. For a player, we really encourage them to enhance the profile after they download. Once you put your profile information, you can go to Find Player service and then look for players around you, and just see if you want to invite anyone. If you like somebody, you can just invite them. And if you're kids, please make sure that you have your parents traveling with you when you play. That's part of our security measure. We do caution all junior players to travel with 18 and older adults with them all the time. Yeah, so then you can invite the players, and you can set up a place. That we don't restrict where you need to play. You can play in the backyard if you have a tennis court, or you can go to a public court, or you can paid court. The choice is yours. And if you don't find the venue you're looking for, you can always add the venue and invite the player to play.
Very cool. And what are you hearing so far about how especially juniors are using your app?
So the juniors find it very useful, especially when they travel. As I said, they're always looking for a hitting partner, whether it's a fellow player or coaches. In the hometown area, it still needs to pick up a little bit more traction, because a lot of the tennis players that we're involved with today, they have a very busy schedule. During the week, they practice. During the weekends, they do tournaments and they travel. So they haven't really altered their schedule with our app. What we would like to see in the future is that, this app is very integral part of their schedule planning, and that's where we want to be, so they can, probably change a couple of the training sessions to use the app to play with different profiles, people who are above them, below them, or even adults, just to get a different ball bounce, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the other.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Chuck.
Yeah, the other thing that we're hearing more and more is, or seeing is with more junior tennis players in a given area who are signing up and using the app, the greater the experience and benefit they're getting from it. And I think that's key, probably especially for the listeners of your podcast. Is it's one of these where groups of people, if they all actually sign up for it and begin using it, even the free version, the benefit they get goes up exponentially with the number of people in that area that sign up, because obviously they could find more people to match up with and play.
So, I mean, one of the things that you're trying to do at this point, obviously, is grow your audience, grow your user base. And that's where the Parenting Aces community can really come in and help. And I would say to my listeners, at least download the app and sign up for the free version so that you can play around with it and hopefully use it to help your child find practice partners, hitting partners, warm-up partners when they're traveling to tournaments. And then beyond that, it's up to you how you use it. But there's no downside for going ahead and downloading the app now and registering and getting into that player pool. And my goodness, I mean, what a great opportunity to schedule some extra practice matches outside of drills, outside of private lessons, which y'all know how I feel about, these practice matches and how important they are for getting our kids ready for tournament play. And I just think this is such an easy solution to that. Guys, y'all mentioned that UTR is involved in this, or you're using UTR as part of your platform. Can you talk a little bit more about why you chose to do that and how you're integrating it?
Sure. So I personally believe UTR ranking is a bit more balanced. There's no age limitation or sex. It's just a straight ranking. Having that ranking as part of a player profile helps a junior player even to look for an adult player of their caliber or slightly higher to improve their game. And even for an adult player now, it doesn't make, look like, oh, I'm playing with a kid. I don't know how he's going to play. If they happen to know the UTR player of the kid who's inviting them, it's also encouraging for them. They may not be always able to find an adult player. So it's an encouraging factor for everyone involved to play based on their levels, and I think UTR is a great way to do that. And what we're trying to do with UTR is that create a partnership model where we can get their ranking updated frequently, and also be able to report the scores back to their system, which will be included in their rating system. And we're yet to make any formal announcement on this. We're still in the initial stages of the discussion with UTR. We will keep you guys posted as we develop on this relationship with UTR.
And hopefully by the time this airs, you will have more information on that, which I will reference in the show notes or maybe even in the show intro. So we'll have to see how that goes. But I love that. I'm a huge fan of UTR, as everyone who is a regular visitor to Parenting Aces knows. And I think the more we can integrate their rating system into every aspect of junior and college tennis, the better. And to rec tennis, I mean, it's very useful for even players like me, and I think that's fantastic. One of the things that I am very interested in is how you feel this platform is going to kind of grow and expand as your user base grows and expands.
Chuck, you want to go first?
Yeah, I can, and when you ask that, Lisa, I'm sure you're asking it from a point of, what other benefits in the future,
Yes.
the user community can get, and there's multiple facets to pairing up players. Obviously, we're starting with some of the basic ones that make the most sense in terms of skill level and such, and obviously time availability and geographic location. But, expanding that out to provide a greater amount of information about, players' interests and desires and even personality factors, right, to be incorporated in to improve the enjoyment of the people you're playing with, right? We all, that's key as well for match playing. That's just kind of one example of really leveraging, the availability of the information that we'll get about people and what their interests are and how we can apply it so that their experience is much richer when they do get matched up with individuals that may never played with before.
Right. No, that's fantastic.
Just to add to what Chuck said, Lisa, you know how expensive playing tennis could get. Whether you're playing or we have few kids playing. Our goal of bringing this platform to the junior players is not only to improve the game, to keep the cost at the minimum while they keep improving their game, right? So let me give you a couple of examples how this could be done. Let's say if a kid gets a lesson every day, pays hundreds of dollars, for the lesson, it's great, but again, you're not getting enough match play, during that lesson. You're either hitting with one or two people in that lesson or with your coach. But with our app, if you do a match play and you're paying $5 for the whole month, if you got a couple of match plays, plays in, and you can even choose a public court where you don't really pay, or even if you pay a nominal fee, just look at the level of involvement, this app could bring in on a day-to-day life for a player, and that could save cost. And, the player gets to play a lot and improve the game. So that's where really we want to make the difference for everybody, who's playing tennis. It's not only improve the game, reduce the cost so people can, really, spend the money elsewhere and maybe traveling more and playing bigger tournaments and things like that.
Right. And I want to go back to the whole issue with UTR and reporting match play scores to them. One of the things that people seem to be concerned about with UTR is the fact that they only take a set number of matches when determining a player's rating. And so some people are hesitant to play matches that, quote, don't count count in terms of, USTA ranking or ITF ranking, et cetera. But I want to just put it out there that how awesome for kids, especially, to be able to play a practice match that is going to impact their UTR, where they're not in the stressful setting of a tournament. The parents haven't spent a fortune in a weekend traveling or committing, to be at a tournament site all weekend. And yet, the young players still get this match play experience. I think it's fantastic. And I want to just encourage my listeners not to let that whole number of match thing with UTR impact your decision to use this app to encourage your child to play more practice matches. I think, it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely, Lisa. That's really where we're trying to close the gap with the UTR as well. And we do know some of the junior players, want to play only when there's a ranking involved, just to kind of offset that, we're working. But, you're bringing a very important point. People are not playing enough match play to really get, their strokes improved and things like that in a slightly competitive fashion, right, apart from the training setting. That's where I think the match play is very important. We don't do a lot of that, with kids today. They practice and they go straight to the tournament. I think it's even if a kid doesn't want to, include the score to go to the UTR, they will have an option. You can turn it on and off. It's up to the player. That's the way we are building it. If you want to report the scores to the UTR, you can do it. If you don't, if you want to keep it casual, you can do that as well.
And I think that's fantastic. I was just getting ready to ask you that because sometimes kids need to play a practice match to work on something, right? And so they're going into that match knowing they're probably not going to win the match, but they're using it as an opportunity to work on either a pattern of play or a new stroke or a new tactic, that maybe they learned in a private lesson or a semi-private lesson earlier in the week. And obviously they don't want that result to impact their UTR. So you guys have thought of everything. You can turn that feature off and play a practice match that is simply that, a practice match. It doesn't count toward anything other than giving you an opportunity to be on court and play, which is fantastic.
Yeah, I think
Right.
the other benefit in terms of increasing the amount of play is, there's the self-induced coordination of match play, but sometimes everybody, parents and kids, have such busy lives that it's nice to have others stimulate the opportunity to play. And through this application, you may not even be thinking about playing, and you are asked to be matched up with another person who wants to play, and it stimulates them to actually get out there and get more experience as well, which is, I think, a real benefit for, from a health perspective, and nothing else.
Right.
Excellent for kids and adults, obviously, where it's applicable as well, but especially for kids.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Well, I want to touch on another feature of your app, which is the coaches side of the app. You do have something called featured coaches. And since we do have plenty of coaches that tune into this podcast, I'd love for you to talk about that feature.
Sure. So for the coaches and the clubs, we offer this featured coaches and featured clubs option. What really that means is that if a coach comes onto a platform, obviously we do some background check, check to see if they're PTR or USPTA certified. We want to make sure that whatever the USTA intent of keeping the players secure and all of that, we respect that. Once we get past that stage, the coaches on our platform fairly new. To give some exposure to the coach, we feature them on our website as well as on the app. So that gives some exposure to the coach who's being featured on our platform. If he is only known in the local area, now there are traveling kids coming in. They get an opportunity to meet with this feature coach and take a lesson or hit with the coach. So it's just all about creating more and more exposure for the coaches, without having them spend a lot of money on marketing or social media, on their own. So that's really what it is, giving them more exposure, when they come on board.
Right. Right. I think that's great. And, again, it's a real issue if your child is traveling for tournament play. Sometimes you can't take your child's coach with you. Sometimes it's mom or dad going, and depending on the level of the child and the level of the parents, you need somebody a little more skilled to make sure your child is ready for their matches. And so finding a local coach to take a lesson or just do a warm up with them or whatever you need that's a great feature. I love that.
Thank you, Lisa.
So oh yeah, go ahead.
Since you talked about the tournament play situation, traveling, I'll also bring in this element. If you're especially traveling to East Coast during the wintertime, you're not going to be able to find courts outside to play. You're going to have to find, the clubs in the local area, and you may have to pay for it as well. So the club feature does two things. One, lets you find the local clubs around you, plus also being able to find the cheaper one, so you don't have to spend a whole lot of money just to go warm up. So as the clubs have cancellation, we will be posting those slots as well at a much competitive rate than the normal rate. So if you were to call the club, you're going to get the normal rate. When the club's posting those open slots with us, especially if it opened up last minute, 11th hour, you're going to get it a lot more cheaper. So you can. It's a win-win for the players or the club. They can rent the open slot, and also the player can find a cheaper place to play.
Right. That's fantastic. I can't tell you how much money I spent on indoor courts for warm-ups at some of the tournaments, especially during the winter time. It was just nuts. And living in Atlanta, we're not used to having to do that. So that was really kind of a shock the first time it happened. I had no idea how expensive indoor court fees are. It's crazy. I feel for you people that have to pay for that indoor time all winter long. It's tough. So
we put our personal experience and all of that into this app as well.
Smart, smart. So, one of the things that you guys have done, because as I mentioned, neither of you grew up in tennis, you have put together an advisory panel for My Game Solutions. And one of the people on your advisory panel is Trent Bride, who I know well. Trent's from my neck of the woods down in Georgia. And Trent is one of the top juniors in the world. And just recently actually announced that he's going to play college tennis for University of Georgia, which I'm thrilled about. I know Coach Manny Diaz is just going nuts signing Trent. That was a big get for him. But talk a little bit about how you chose your advisory board and specifically having somebody like Trent who, Trent's a kid. I mean, he's a teenager still. How that's helped you in terms of developing and marketing the app.
Sure. So Chuck and I come from a large enterprise type of setting. So we know how to build companies. We both have done it in the past. We always look for the gaps and different types of skills, when we're building an organization. So while Chuck and I come from a strong technology background, we do recognize the gaps that we have in the areas of, the sports industry, the people who really have, lived and played the sport, like Trent as an example. We also have another board of director, Manuel Cavaco, who used to be a professional tennis player growing up. He played for Portugal. And, so that's where we really sit down and think about the gaps we have and bring in the people to really fill the gap. And as I said, Trent is a junior player, but you know what? He really understands the tennis industry very well. He played around the world. He brings in a good flavor of what a competitive junior tennis player would look for in an app. And that's something we couldn't get, outside of Trent. And that's why we have him on the board. And he's a great asset, from that perspective. Manuel, from an adult, serious professional tennis player, what they look for. And we also have other players like other advisory board members like Callum and a few others who are, who play tennis for recreational purposes. So that's where we go recruiting, wherever we have the gap and try to fill it in.
Yeah, y'all are smart. And I think, having especially a young face on the app like Trent is such a great marketing tool for you because, like you said, Trent's very savvy. He has traveled the world playing. He's played all 4 junior slams. He's been everywhere, and he's incredibly well-spoken and poised, when meeting with adults, other kids, whatever the age, Trent's very competent in handling those communication needs. So I think he's a great addition to what you guys are doing.
Thank you, Lisa.
So what else do we need to know about My Game Solutions?
Well, it's just a start. We have a lot of things on our pipeline in terms of features and functionalities. 2 things I'll mention. From a roadmap standpoint, as we introduce more and more features, we will also want to benefit the community. So we will keep throwing in more features, even on the basic, the free app side. While we try to also increase the company revenue by putting a little bit more feature on the premium and premium plus. But our commitment is, always there for the community members, who are willing to, download and give it a try on the basic version. A lot more functionalities to come in the next couple of months. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah, and I think I'd add to what we already have in our plans. That the reality of it is, with more and more people downloading it, using it, experiencing, we believe the benefits from it. They'll also have, some additional ideas that we definitely want to hear about and know how we could make it even better for them, for their kids, as opposed to just, imagining things that we believe would be, because there's nothing better than letting, an application like this where you have a large number of people, social media like, who will be using it to gain that feedback and let that set the path of our roadmap.
So if people do have comments or suggestions for you, what's the best way for them to share that with you?
They can either go to our website and when there's a contact us page, they can put in their feedback. And also, we're looking to add a feedback option right in the app. It should be coming in the next month or so, so they can put their feedback from the app itself. So those are the two areas that they can report their feedback right now. One on the website, another one coming soon on the app itself. So you can put your suggestions and feedback to us.
And the website again is www.sportsmadeeasy.com. That's sports with an S, MADEEZ.com.
That is correct.
Awesome. And just for clarification purposes, the app is available for Apple and Android?
That is correct. Yes.
Fantastic. Well, guys, thank you so much for doing the podcast and sharing your fabulous new app with our audience. And to my listeners, please go download this app. It doesn't cost you anything to get it. If you decide you want the premium content, you can always add that later, but at least get in the community and start playing around with it so that your child can start scheduling some matches or be contacted to schedule some matches. I think, that was a great point that you made about the fact that even if your child is hesitant to reach out and try to schedule a match, they may be contacted through the app. And so it kind of forces them to kind of take that step.
Yes.
That's right. Lisa, thank you so much for having us, and thanks for all your listeners as well.
Yeah.
Well, I wish you guys continued success and so appreciate y'all taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us. And please keep me posted on any updates, and I'll make sure to update the show notes once the podcast goes live.
Excellent.
You bet. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks so much. And to my listeners, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time on Parenting Aces. I'm Lisa Stone, and you've been listening to the Parenting Aces podcast for tennis parents by a tennis parent. If you like what you've heard, please subscribe to us and write a review on iTunes. For more information on navigating the junior and college tennis journey, please visit us online at parentingaces.com. Thanks for tuning in and sharing us with your tennis community.